look to 2020, we had no idea it would be a year unlike any other. From the coronavirus pandemic to mass demonstrations and a racial reckoning, all while a bitter and sometimes surreal presidential race played out. While it may not be a year we want to relive, it is a year we need to remember. That's why the Smithsonian is building a collection of artifacts that tell the story of 2020. Here's Christina Ruffini.
When New York nurse Sandra Lindsay got the first COVID-19 vaccine in America, it was historic. So historic that the Smithsonian snatched her socks.
And her socks. You stole her socks.
And we stole her socks.
Technically, they curated them, with permission, along with her scrubs, ID badge, and the very vial that held her shot.
We didn't just want the empty vial. We wanted to preserve something about this person who was really kind of selected for this moment.
Deep in the archives of the National Museum of American History, curator Diane Wendt focuses on the history of medicine, specifically vaccines and pharmaceuticals.
2020 was a big year for you.
2020 was a big year for medicine. Yes, I think so. It's a big year for everyone, actually.
It's all here, from brass engraved scab keepers to a bottle of Jonas Salk's original polio inoculation. And now, the COVID-19 shot.
We realized that we really had a responsibility for beginning to collect material. So in the future, historians, the public, whoever can try and understand this event.
When it comes to history-making moments,
does anybody have any question?
the last 2 years have had a lot of them.
We will stop the steal.
But it's sometimes hard to recognize history when you're living through it.
You can't cry victim when you report fake news all the time.
Presenting a new challenge for the nation's memory keepers and Secretary of the Smithsonian, Lonnie Bunch.
The key is to think about how do you document today so that people who don't know this story will be able to understand it a generation, 2 or 3 generations from now.
With the museum and its offices closed due to the pandemic, curators formed quick reaction teams to document the remains of particularly important days.
Black Lives Matter!
Like the Black Lives Matter protests in Lafayette Park, or the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol.
What I think is important for the Smithsonian is to recognize that we have to make sure that America remembers. And so the brilliant staff collected amazing things.
This was a slogan that was used not just in Washington, D.C., but at protests around the country after the murder of George Floyd.
In the political history department, Claire Jerry usually focuses on campaign swag. But she also collects from important protest movements.
This sign was not carefully made that morning. It was painted, it was riveted onto a post. So it tells us a lot about what was going on behind the scenes.
Her 2021 collection includes a ceremonial copy of the vote tally that certified the election, the very thing the January 6 rioters were trying to stop.
Why do we need to have these posters for the next generation?
This shows that people were there. It shows what people were thinking. When you stand in front of a poster or an object in our museum, you're standing in front of that other person who touched that object 100 years ago.
We can't know how Americans 100 years from now will view current events, or those of us who lived through them. But by collecting these real-time relics, the Smithsonian hopes to help future visitors put themselves in our shoes. Or rather, a soft, colorful pair of Sandra Lindsay's socks. For CBS This Morning Saturday, Christina Ruffini, Washington.
I'm not sure there are some parts of 2020 that people want to revisit immediately.
Yeah.
Maybe with a little distance.
Yeah, posterity. This is all for posterity.
Yeah, but we do need to process and give it some distance, I agree,
Yeah.
and then take a look at it, I think, for those of us living through it.
So what is
right
that,
now.
5 or 10 or 25 years?
Generation, whatever else. I mean, you asked a good question about the socks, though. Do they wash them before they put them in?
Jeffrey Todd.
They should,
We're
right?
moving on now.
Okay.